HECA in partner with Quinry Clinical Research. Let's use the power of ethics to build a better future. This is the slogan of 7th Global Ethics Day. Initiated by Carnegie Council of Ethics in International Affairs in 2014, the Global Ethics Day is an annual moment to empower ethics through the actions of individuals and organizations. The motto of Global Ethics Day is to empower ethics and ensure that ethics matter, which aligns with the mission of HECA, which is to empower human ethics ethics committees nationwide to contribute effectively for promoting ethical and transparent clinical research, thereby ensuring rights, safety, and welfare of volunteers. This year, Human Ethics Committee Association, HECA, celebrated Global Ethics Day by organizing webinars, quiz competition, and essay competition. Today, we are highly honored to have with us an eminent speaker, Dr. Vedprakash Mishra, Pro-Chancellor, Datta Megha Institute of Medical Sciences, Nagpur, to share with us his view on the topic, ethics, the way of life. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Pleasure.
Before we proceed, I request all the participants to please post your questions in the comment section and we will take them up in the Q&A. Now, I request Dr. Richa Dayaramani, President, Human Ethics Committee Association, to introduce and invite our speaker for today's webinar. Dr. Richa.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. And it is our pleasure, and we feel privileged and proud to have an eminent personality, national and international personality, Dr. Vedprakash Mishra, sir, to grace the platform. And it is also a matter of proud for all of us that he is our advisory member for HECA, and he appreciated our initiative of forming this society. Which is actually HECA we formed in order to we saw that the members of the ethics committee need to be empowered and need to be educated, need to be made aware, because as a third party approval, IEC approval is very important, and it was observed that somewhere there is some gap, and which is in fact affecting adversely the status and the clinical research all over. So it is very, very important, and this gap was realized, and it is our small effort to address this gap by way of forming a platform for mutual discussions, for sharing the guidelines, sharing the procedures in a digital and futuristic manner. And we are sponsored by Quinry Clinical Research, and they are our research partners, and they have sponsored HECA. And we are working in this direction to basically empower the ethics committee registered with DCGI or CDSCO, and we take great pride in this is a very slow movement. Slowly awareness is being created, but एक जैसे दिया जलाया है और धीरे धीरे हम we hope कि within a span of 4 to 5 years this will we will be able to serve something to the society. So ethics, as we all know, that it is very important. It is of high moral value, and as being academicians and researchers, it is our moral duty to address these issues, to address the issues of moral conflict in research also, so that the dignity of the humankind is maintained. So moving out in this journey, I believe we are the initiators or pioneers in holding this type of webinar and celebrating Global Ethics Week in India. Major of the members of our organizations are pharmacists, and many medical persons are also associated with us. And this is a small initiative. We have organized certain competitions to create awareness amongst the students, like quiz competition, essay competition, webinar, all across the country, and we have got a good response from their side. We have got good participation from their side. So yes, we are doing our bit, and we hope that our endeavors are appreciated and they result in a good manner. So now, without taking much time, I would like to introduce our speaker of the webinar, speaker of the day, Professor of Excellence, Professor of Eminence, and Professor Emeritus, Dr. Vedprakash Mishra, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Again, many thanks to you. And Dr. Mishra has been conferred with the prestigious Dr. B.C. Roy National Award for the year 2016 in the category of to recognize the merit of an eminent medical teacher, ceremonially at the hands of Honorable President of India at Rashtrapati Bhavan on 28th March 2017. So it's a really matter of proud for us to have you here, sir. He is also confirmed with Doctor of Science honoris causa by 5 Indian health science universities and 1 DMSc by an Indian health science university in recognition of the selfless service sir has rendered to the cause of medical education of impact and consequences at national as well as at international levels. The present positions held by Dr. Mishra sir is that he is serving as principal advisor to Honorable Chancellor and Krishna Institute of Medical Sciences, Karad, Pro-Chancellor, Datta Meghe Institute of Medical Sciences, Nagpur, National Head of the Academic Program of Indian Program UNESCO Chair in Bioethics, Haifa, Member of International Committee for Bioethics for Asia Pacific region. He is also serving as advisor, Human Ethics Committee Association, Bangalore. So it's a matter of proud for us to have listed this in your resume. He is also Dean, Academic and Accreditation Board, National Indian Medical Association, New Delhi, Director, Professor in Advanced Physiology, Professor of Eminence, Excellence and Emeritus with 5 Health Sciences Universities of our country, Honorary IMA Professor, Indian Medical Association, Headquarters, New Delhi, Honorary Director, Center for Health Policy Planning and Education Research, Datta Meghe Institute of Medical Sciences, Nagpur. He also holds the position of Chairman, National Medical Education Board, IMA Headquarters. He is a member of National Advisory Council of Indian Medical Association, New Delhi. He is the academic head and convener of Academic Council, SARC Medical Association. He is a Vice President, Management Committee, Education Promotion Society for India, New Delhi. And he is member advisory boards and board of management with very prominent and reputed universities of our country. He is life member, B.C. Roy Memorial National Endowment Fund, New Delhi, member Governing Council, Kasturba Health Society, Sevagram, Wardha, and he has been convener experts group of National Board of Examination, New Delhi. So this is a eminent CV, and which is very inspiring that someday means it is really next to impossible for a person to achieve this. But really, personally, when I know you, sir, as a human being also, you have inspired me, and you have, एक साथ आस जगाई आपने हमारे मन में कि हम भी आपकी तरह कुछ थोड़ा अचीव कर सके 10%. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. The platform is all yours, sir.
Thank you very much, learned President of HECA, and a lady of eminence whom I am proud to be not only knowing, but being associated with, respected Dr. Richa Dayaramani, the learned Secretary of HECA, my esteemed brother, Dr. Sudhir, all the learned participants who have joined this live depiction, which I am fortunate enough to be participating in. At the outset, I would like to record my thankfulness and gratitude, including compliments to Dr. Richa and their entire team for really taking up a mantle of responsibility in a very meaningful, cogent, and credible manner, and with the ideals which have been listed in the vision of HECA to undertake the said revolution, I will say, in the country for the purpose of upholding the moral ethics which are expected to be governing the entire soul of bioclinical research. Therefore, I am not just here to be responding to Dr. Richa's invitation to be formally delivering a talk in terms of the observance of Global Ethics Day. Believe me, Dr. Richa, I thought that there must be some way in which I must be in a position to be bowing my head in reverence to the lofty initiative that you have initiated, and I'm sure the scripted success which has come and which is going to come, it will definitely enlighten the entire scenario of biomedical research in conformity with the mandatory ethical considerations and giving a sense of ethical essence to the entire pursuit. Having said so, I equally feel duty bound to be recording my thanks to Dr. Richa and their entire team for blessing me with this opportunity of interacting with all of you on a very notable occasion in the name of World Ethics Day under the aegis of HECA. And the liberty that was extended to me to be picking up and coining the phrase for the topic I would like to be dealing with. Normally, organizers are not that magnanimous and that liberal. But I'm thankful that when in course of my discussion with Dr. Richa, what we mutually finalized for me was that I should be speaking on ethics, the way of life. Thank you very much, Dr. Richa and your entire team. Ladies and gentlemen, World or Global Ethics Day is not a day which is just meant for commemoration. It's not just that we are wanting to observe a week. Let us understand certain fundamental propositions born out of posterity and the historicity. If you take into consideration the entire civilization that is attributable to you and me as men and mankind, we know it for certain that as Homo sapiens, we started in the cave age. And today, we stand into be belonging to a society which we can say a civilized society, a prudent society, a society which can be said to be on the path of egalitarianism. What exactly it is all about? What is that cardinal factor, ladies and gentlemen, which can be said to be the core essence of transition of a caveman to a modern civilized man? And the only principle which I'm in a position to underline to drive my point home is that to a caveman, to an uncivilized man, to an uncultured man, to a barbaric man, the cardinal principle of life, individual and communal, was, quote unquote, might is right. Jiski lathi, uski bhains. This is the dictum which was governing the society. And having moved 180-degree circle, what is the cardinal principle of the modern civilized life of yours and mine? It's no more that might is right. The shift is that we are governed by a principle of, quote, right is might, unquote. I think this is the basic rubric in which I'm wanting to put the entire perspective. Having begun our lives with the cardinal principle of might is right, reaching to a crescendo that right is might, what is that changing factor? What is that guiding spirit? What is that which has resulted in innovation of all of us? And what is that spirit which has made this transition possible? It's not an accidental transition. It's not an aberration that we have harbored. It is a planned dimension which we inculcated to ourselves for the purposes of our own collective prosperity in the terms of individual behavior, conforming to the well-being of a society or community that we espoused for, and ending up in considerations of emancipation of not only men and mankind, but humanity as a whole in the domain of what we collectively call as humanism or humanistic ethos, which is nothing but to my understanding is a triangle of ethicality, morality, and value ethos. It is this triangle, ladies and gentlemen, which I call as triangle of civilization, triangle of emancipation, triangle of upliftment, triangle of making you and me as we ought to be, and triangle of making us look different from the entire rest of the other species of the world, saying that men are born with prudence because they live with prudence and they cater to the prudence. That is the entire continuum of ethicality. Having said so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm wanting to bring a second important consideration into focus, and that is, we always talk about two important words as something which guide the society. Morals. What are morals? Morals are not imaginary fictions. They are not set out benchmarks. They are something which we think are positive and pragmatic, which will give a sense of that dimension to the men and mankind, which will be what is called as emancipation or upliftment. What are morals? Morals are the desired, expected conducts which are expected both out of individuals and also the community and society as a whole, which will be catering to what? Which will be catering to certain ethos. And that ethos is an ethos of 5 important factors. Ethos of esteem, ethos of prestige, ethos of dignity, ethos of self-respect, and ethos of collective being. These are the 5 cardinal principles, ladies and gentlemen, which make what a life is expected to be in the real essence. And therefore, there has to be a governing cardinal concept which will be deciding what is right and what is wrong. I am tempted to quote Socrates on this count, which I think will be in a position to make me an entire edifice of justification what I am wanting to advocate. He said, quote, "What is ethically wrong cannot be legally just and politically right," unquote. These are the 3 parables, ladies and gentlemen. Let us look at it. And if you are in a position to look at it analytically, I think that will be the core part of what I am wanting to advocate. He says, what is ethically right? That which is right ethically. Then there are 2 negations which he says. Cannot be politically just. In case it is ethically wrong, it cannot be politically just, or it cannot be legally just and politically right. Means the touchstone of right and wrong is not legality. The touchstone of right and wrong is not political essence and political ethos. The touchstone of right and wrong is not the majoritarian law. The touchstone is not even the consensus building. The touchstone is a right even if nobody practices it. And a wrong is wrong even if everybody practices it. This is the operational reality which I am wanting to put. And therefore to say that there is a shade of right and there is a shade of wrong. No, ladies and gentlemen. It's all or none mechanism which I am wanting to put across. A right is right. It is right and it continues to be right, even if it is not practiced by anybody. And a wrong is absolutely wrong, even if everybody is practicing the same. And therefore to say that right and wrong will be governed by the practices in operation. Right and wrong will be something which is being observed by the majority of the people. Absolutely is an absurdity. The touchstone of right and wrong is not the majoritarian concept. The touchstone of right and wrong is not how many people practice in breach and how many people practice in conformity. The touchstone is it is the absolute test which governs the right and wrong. This is the essence of morality, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore, when we are talking about the right and wrong demarcation, what exactly it is which is to be worked out in the society. Socrates has given a very beautiful model 5,000 years back, and when he said, a society will have to have moral competence within its fold. The word he used was moral competence. Among the competence of the society, one of the important considerations of its emancipation and cultural civilization is what is its moral competence. This moral competence ultimately will be worked out in what manner. And the modality that he had put across was that moral competence of the society will be based on moral case deliberations in the society. There have to be moral case deliberations in the society. And that deliberation will be in terms of what he classically described, Madam Chairperson, is the dilemma method. To do or not to do. That famous quote of the Shakespeare perhaps is the greatest example of a dilemma method. There will always be a dilemma, this way or that way. बड़ी मुश्किल में हूं मैं किधर जाऊं, मैं इधर जाऊं या उधर जाऊं. Dilemma. Answer to that particular dilemma in the name of moral case deliberation for the purposes of generation of moral competence. Ultimately, he says that there will be an approach for this particular dimension to be invoked in the society, and that will be in the form of a methodical reflection by those who have sensed it. That methodical reflection, it has to be worked out in terms of a systematic dialogue in the society. That systematic dialogue will result in certain generation of certain reflections and will end up in generation of a knowledge. That knowledge, which ultimately will have to be linked with moral judgment and then has to be tested for its reliability and validity. And this entire process will result in generation of what he said as certain moral midwives who will be the one who will be nurturing the propagation of morality in the society. The most primitive, the most ancient model that the human civilization knows is the Socratic model of moral competence. That society whose quotient of moral competence is high is an equitable society, is a tolerant society, is an accommodative society, is a resilient society, is a dynamic society, is a society which is in a position to be uplifting it, not only in the materialistic senses, but also in the senses of spirituality. And that spirituality is not religion and religiosity. That spiritual connotation is self, beyond self, selflessly self, and non-selfishly self. These are the four contours which ultimately go in for bringing out what we consider as moral competence. Having said so, ladies and gentlemen, when I'm talking in the forum of HECA and when I'm saying, ultimately, if you look into the entire perspectives of life today, the chaos that our life is plagued by is basically due to compromises that we have espoused and we have accepted for ourselves. These compromises are basically what we call as, my conscience is telling me something, but in reality, I'm required to be performing and dispensing something different. I want to know, what is this conscious stock? Are we not conscious of the conscious stock that is there with us every day? What does it speak? It speaks what language? It speaks on what basis? It speaks on what rationality? It speaks on what experience? Basically speaking, ladies and gentlemen, what we call it, the talk of the conscience is always the talk of morality, is always the talk of ethicality, is always the talk of value ethos. But what we are able to translate is materially different than what the conscience is telling us. In reality, there is a gap between the moral principles and the actualization of the human dispensation and behavior. And the greater the chasm between these two is the greater riotry that the society is plagued by. All of us talk about corruption. All of us talk about corruptible means. All of us talk about moral degradation. All of us talk about absolutely moral bankruptcy that the society is plagued with, and there is an acceptance to the society. What is the cause of it? The cause of it is simple. If you go by the small little role which Gandhi had propagated long back, he had said, this nature, Mother Nature, has got everything to cater to the needs of everybody, but it has nothing to cater to the greed of anybody. The conflict between need and greed, if it is to be balanced, that balancing fulcrum is morality in the society, value ethos in the society, morals in the society, ethicality in the society. And it is in that context, the significance of ethicality is not judgmental in character. It is not something which is to be put across as to what it is and what it is not. It is absolutely a conscious perception which has to be realized by self, materialized by self, and actualized by self. It is that torch-bearing nature that the morality is expected to be sustaining, and the morality is expected to be transcending for the purposes of generating an equitable human ethos based on various cardinal principles that we espouse for ourselves. Having said so, ladies and gentlemen, there is yet another important dimension which I would like to put across. Is morality, is ethicality, therefore a yardstick for the purposes of assessment of human endeavor? My answer is no. It is not that there are sections and operations in human life which are expected to be governed by it. No. It is not just a code of conduct. It is not a bondage to which we are expected to be enslaving ourselves and putting it something load on our head for the purposes of compliance. Then what it is? When I was putting this across to Dr. Richa, one of the important dimensions in the back of my mind was the Constituent Assembly debate, which I was referring to. Why is it that the country adopted democratic model in the Indian polity in the Constitution, putting across the nature of the state of ours as a democratic state? Dr. Ambedkar, before the Constituent Assembly, advocating for the nomenclature of our state as a democratic state other than sovereign republic, he made a very beautiful sentence, and I'm tempted to quote that in order to justify why did I pick up this particular theme. He said, democracy in free India will not just be a political system of electing political representatives. It has to be adopted as a value, to be incorporated and indoctrinated as a way of life, because that will be an antithesis to the feudal mindset that we Indians, in the name of the cultural ethos, have been harboring. And this antithesis I'm wanting us to appreciate. Democratic state, not just as a political system, but as a way of life, means what? The autocracy inbuilt in our mind, the feudalism inbuilt in our mind, the mastery incorporated in our mind, and therefore the resultant consequent follows thereof, they are anti-democratic in nature. Therefore, until and unless democracy will be taken up as a way of life and not a political system, democracy as a political system will be able to give representation to people at large, but then that will be only a political way of life. How about it to be a routine way of life? Therefore, democratic value is an answer to aristocracy, is an answer to autocracy, is an answer to decentralization, is an answer to participative decision making. And that participative decision making, once is adopted as a way of life, then it is not democracy as a system, but every individual lives as a democrat. That is the essence which is required to be taken note of. Therefore, when I picked up this parable that ultimately morality, ethicality has to be a way of life. It is not just a conduct. It is not just a depiction. It is not a projection. It is not a mask which is expected to be worn. It has to be in my daily dispensation. It has to be in my daily course. It has to be in my daily operation. It has to be absolutely a value system to which I am expected to be subscribing to. And it is not just a showpiece which I will be depicting. This will be depicted in my day-to-day routine dispensations, absolutely governed by not only being right, but also being righteous in character. That is the dictum, and hence ethicality and morality is not an institutionalized pigeon which is required to be put across in captivity for the purposes of releasing it ceremonially on a sovereign day. No, it is expected to be harbored for the purposes of a behavioral depiction in every action which is being emanating out of you and me, in order to make our society and individuality look as a conforming ethical society in terms of input, throughput, and output. It is that dimension which I am wanting to harbor. When we are talking of ethics, ladies and gentlemen, when I'm speaking on the forum of HECA and on their podium, it is imperative. I'm not just talking about the general ethics in terms of the way of life. One of the important, significant portion of the ethics which is to govern is what we call as professional ethics. You and me belonging to medical profession, you and me belonging to health profession. Professional ethics governs the entire scenario. And it is in this professional ethics, two important landmark charters have to be taken note of. Why is it that the world adopted a UNO charter? What exactly it was all about in the year 1948? The two world wars, the saga of travesty of the various anti-human dimensions, did it not compel the world to come and sign a declaration? What was that declaration all about? It was a declaration which was having a trinity of human dignity, human respect, and human autonomy. This is the trinity which I am wanting to put across, ladies and gentlemen. Human dignity is paramount. Human dignity, along with the human dignity, it is important that this dignity is upheld. This is not trampled upon. Human dignity has to be manifested in the form of human respect. Will human dignity and human respect ever be worked out without having a sense of equity and equitability? Samata or samarasta, they turn out to be the cardinal ethos in which human respect and dignity can be protected. It is in this vein we are required to be taking into consideration certain important aspects. We all know the testimony to the Second World War, prisoners of war, the utility of the prisoners' war in the various biomedical researches, perhaps in the most unhuman, torturing, and beastly manner, resulted in we coming to a conclusion that it is imperative that such horror stories cannot be repeated, because it will be a slur in the name of humanity and it will be anti-humanistic in character. Therefore, the advent from in continuation of the UNO declaration, the Helsinki declaration pertaining to the biomedical research, and finally 2000 UNESCO declaration with reference to bioethical consideration and the principle thereto. If you look at these three important documents together, perhaps what we are contemplating, professional ethics to be incorporated in the realistic sense, the entire treatise of that comes before our eyes. Well, I'm wanting to put this across, ladies and gentlemen. It will be imperative on my part to be flashing and putting across certain important dimensions. Ultimately, when we are talking of professional ethics, when we are talking of professionalism, when we are talking of altruism, what are the principles which are working out on them? Two cardinal principles. One is healing at one end and cure at the other. The first parable which has to be taken note of is healing versus cure. And along with the principle of healing versus cure, the second important principle which will be governing the entire scenario will be what? That will be sympathy versus empathy. Again, I'm putting across two important focus. It's very easy for you and me to be sympathizing with a situation or an individual, but it's very difficult to be converting that sympathy into empathy. Sympathy is charity, but empathy is recognition of parity in terms of accommodation. And this is exactly what is the subtle difference which we are required to be taking note of. And hence, when we are contemplating professional ethics, the cardinal four important principles which have been adopted are: it is going to be governed by total sense of beneficence, but only beneficence will not do. It will be plagued with non-maleficence, beneficence, non-maleficence, ensuring the autonomy in its totality. And simultaneously with the autonomy, it will be absolutely something which will be resultant, will be diligent justice. The four corners which I am wanting to be putting across, ladies and gentlemen, are absolutely inevitably important. It's not only the beneficence at one end, non-maleficence at the other, autonomy at the third, and justice at the fourth. See to this particular square, what it imbibes, what it smells, what it smacks. It smacks of equity. It smacks of equitability. It smacks of tolerance. It smacks of accommodation. It smacks of esteem. It smacks of honor. It smacks of dignity, and it smacks of self-respect. These are all the four corners and the contours which cover this. And if you look at this entire gamut, then what it emerges as? It emerges as absolutely a sense of humanization in one form and socialization in the other form. If you take this entire thing to be a throughput, with all these ingredients as input, what is the output? Output is only humanization as an outcome, and humanization along with socialization as the second important aspect. And this is exactly what is supposed to be the outcome of professional ethics. It also contemplates certain value ethos, because ethicality devoid of value ethos absolutely will turn out to be a pauper. And therefore, in that sense, what will be the value ethos which is expected to be there in this particular dimension of four-cornered ethical contours and tenets? It will be first important part is commitment. This commitment has to be blended with responsiveness, and this commitment and responsiveness has to be plagued by accountability. I am putting three important values. There has to be a sense of commitment. Professional commitment is the hallmark of ethicality, but that commitment does not mean that it will be devoid of responsiveness. Commitment and responsiveness devoid of accountability also does not mean anything substantial. Therefore, the important trinity is that when we are talking of the ethics as a way of life and professional ethics as a way of profession, then in that situation, three important inputs and inlets which have to converge in the form of centripetality is commitment, responsiveness, and most important is accountability. To whom? Again, three important dimensions. Commitment to patient, commitment to community, and commitment to profession. Responsiveness to whom? Responsiveness to the targeted beneficiary, responsiveness to the community as a whole, and responsiveness to the profession. Accountability to whom? Accountability to the targeted beneficiary, accountability to the community, and accountability to the profession as a whole. I'm putting this free-flowing charter, ladies and gentlemen, which brings about totally as to what the ethical professional tenets ought to be. When I'm putting this, ladies and gentlemen, one of the important questions and one of the important poses which confronted was, are we really in a position to build this up in a real sense? These are not structured formats which we have put across in the situation of systematic learning or systematic imparting of instructions. Therefore, it was imperatively felt, referring to the Belmont report of 1979, it was evident that when we are readying the professionals, it is imperative that the humanity is part of the human dispensation, out of which the entire ethical contours and considerations emanate and generate. They need to be made an important part of the curriculum inclusion. They need to be they need to be incorporated as a significant relevant inclusion in terms of teaching and learning, including they must be put across to the role of assessment so that the learners are certified on that particular count. It's a matter of realization, ladies and gentlemen, that when I'm talking of a medical profession to which I have catered for all these 40 years as a medical functionary at various forums, international global attributes that have been identified, what are they? The four important attributes that a professional, for the trained professional for the healthcare delivery system, what is the expected outcome? We want him or her to be competent. We want him or her to be confident. But meager competence and confidence do not suffice. We want something more. And what is that something more? If you take into a balance and a fulcrum in your hand, then fulcrum is the character of the professional, the C. What are these other C's which are going to balance the two tanks in order to make this fulcrum viably stable? And they are confidence and competence on one side, but on the other pan, two important C's, concern and compassion on the other pan. And that's exactly going to decide the ethical conduct and character of the professional. It's not meager competence. Competence, absolutely fine. The curriculum and training will bestow him. That competence will give him confidence, absolutely, demonstrability and replicability. But then, what is the use of that competence and confidence if there is no sense of concern? And what is the use of that confidence and competence even with concern if compassion is not the outcome? And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, a complete self that we are wanting to incorporate in terms of a final character to be emanating in the domain of professional ethics out of every professional is what? It is confidence and competence at one hand, blended in concern and compassion at the other, which will make the entire thing. And it is out of this, the 5 outcomes which have been globally contemplated are, by virtue of this, what we aim him to be nurtured into: A good clinician or a physician; B, a good communicator; C, a good leader of the health team; D, a lifelong learner; and E, above all, a good, meaningful human professional. What exactly are these? If you take into consideration realizing the terms, we always say, it's easy to be a good person. It's easy to be a good professional, but it's equally difficult to be a good human being. All these things are to be incorporated in one. What is it? What makes a good professional necessarily does not make a good human being. A professional can be confident and competent, but this confident and competent professional, when he's plagued by concern, when he's governed by compassion, when he turns out to be a good professional, when he turns out to be a good communicator, when he turns out to be a good clinician, when he turns out to be a leader of the team, leading in the interest of welfare of men and mankind, and when he is wanting himself to be updated, to be giving the best, and when he is absolutely commitment, when he has got a sense of commitment, when he has got a sense of responsiveness, and when he is governed by the total sense of accountability, where operationally beneficence is his hallmark, non-maleficence is his character, justice is the outcome that he is wanting to deliver, and absolute autonomy of the targeted beneficiary is something which he is upholding in totality. This is the entire dictum and frame of ethicality, morality, and value ethos. Therefore, if somebody wants, it is so difficult to imagine and sketch it out. I can draw that sketch handily and readily, and my whole purpose is, this is the sketch that I have been able to understand. This is the sketch I have been able to decipher, and I am so very happy to share with this learned gathering, realizing the importance of the recommendations of the Belmont report. When in 2015, as the chairman of the Academic Council of Medical Council of India, I undertook along with my team the responsibility of formulating competency-based medical education curriculum, which has been launched in this country in the year 2019. We structured something which we called as the ATCOM module, AETCOM module, where A stands for attitude, ET stands for ethics, and COM stands for communication, altruism, professionalism, structured into the entire curriculum, all 4 phases, 54 competencies, 27 modules, 140 hours of teaching spread over, linked with parallel modes and methods of teaching, blended with the corresponding modes of assessment, and that has become an integral part. The affective domain of the curriculum in the form of ATCOM module stands incorporated in the CBME document, and it is in operation from 2019 in all the 601 medical colleges of the country as a whole. The purpose is, morality is something which is inborn, innate, but then when we are wanting that to be flourishing and actualizing, it is imperative that we need to structure it up. Let us remember our childhood. Whenever we were put across a lesson, at the end of it, there was something which was called as, what is the moral of this lesson? What was the purpose of it? It was not that कि हम story का निचोड़ वहां नहीं समझ पाते थे. उस story की कहीं ना कहीं एक इंगित दिशा हुआ करती थी. उसका कहीं ना कहीं एक इशारा हुआ करता था. वो कहीं ना कहीं कुछ ध्वनित करती थी. वो कहीं ना कहीं कुछ इंगित करती थी, और वह ध्वनित और इंगित जो संपस्त चिंतन के माध्यम से था, उसका समारूपित समायोजित रूप उस मॉरल के अंतर्गत बसा था. Moral was the carry home message, and not it was the carry home message to be rebuilt and reincarnated for the purposes of writing in the examination to scoring the marks and declared as certified and declared as passed. Life is the examination in which the tests of morality are to be successfully cleared, not in distinction, but by scoring 100% mark. And that results in conversion of an ethical individual, catering to the cause of an ethical society, catering to the cause of emancipation of an ethical society, and getting converted that society from a civilized society into an egalitarian society. It is that essence, ladies and gentlemen, which turns out to be the hallmark of it. And therefore, when I am wanting to put this across for the information of all concerned, one of the important things which I would like to put across is what Mahatma Gandhi has said, that there are 7 things. If they are not followed, they will destroy not only a society, but they will destroy the humanity as a whole. I think when I'm saying ethics is a way of life, I'm just wanting to recall the 7 sins, 7 पाप, जो महात्मा ने सेवाग्राम के अपने यंग इंडिया के अंतर्गत व्याख्यात किए थे. I would like to recall them. Wealth without work is a sin. What does it indicate? Wealth without work, the first dimension of the contour of ethicality of a society. Pleasure without conscience. आपने सुख का भोग किया, लेकिन अंतरात्मा के इस गवाह के बिना, absolutely it is a sin. Knowledge without character, it's a sin. Religion without sacrifice, it is a sin. Politics without principle, it's a sin. Science without humanity is a sin. Business without ethics is a sin. 7 contours. And then people ask me, Dr. Mishra, why Gandhi gave only 7 sins? These 7 sins are the entire contours. Believe me, this is the vigor of ethical life. These are the 5 dimensions which he said. 5 important dimensions of life. These are not just the professional dimension that he is putting across. Imagine the 7 contours, and those 7 contours devoid of what? When he says wealth without work, खैरात के अंतर्गत आई हुई दौलत निश्चित तौर के ऊपर में ईमानदारी और निष्ठा का प्रतीक नहीं हो सकती, और इसलिए अगर ये ईमानदारी और निष्ठा का प्रतीक नहीं है तो केवल पाप के अलावा दूसरा कुछ नहीं है. आप जब तक जीवन के सुख और उपभोग बिना अंतरात्मा की गवाही के साथ लेते रहेंगे, it will be absolutely a materialistic thought which is devoid of the spiritualistic contour. जब तक आपका ज्ञान चरित्र के अभाव के अंतर्गत चलेगा, तब तक वह ज्ञान उपयोगी होते हुए भी समाज उपयोगी नहीं हो पाएगा। जब तक आपका धर्म, जिसे आप रिलीजन कहते हैं, वो त्याग की भावना से आंदोलित नहीं होगा, वह आधा और अधूरा होगा। आप राजनीति अथवा स्पर्धा, पॉलिटिक्स इज नॉट ओनली पॉलिटिक्स, हियर ही मींस पॉलिटिक्स बाय जीवन के किसी भी कंटेस्ट के अंतर्गत आप जहां पर जीत की आकांक्षा किए हुए हुए, वहां पर अगर आपने साधनों के साथ समझौता कर लिया, जीवन के अंतर्गत लक्ष्य की शुचिता साधनों की शुचिता के साथ जुड़ा हुआ है। दिस इज द इंगेट डायमेंशन विच इज वांटिंग टू पुट अक्रॉस। आप वैज्ञानिक तार्किकता, जिस तार्किकता को लेकर के आप चलना चाहते हैं, अगर वो मानवीयता से परे है, तो उस तार्किकता का कहीं कोई उपयोग नहीं है। और जीवन का कोई भी व्यवसाय अगर नैतिकता से परे है, तो समाज के लिए उपयोगी हो नहीं सकता। I am wanting these 7 dimensions of what Gandhi contemplated as sins. These are the 7 radiant operational colors of what we call as conformity to ethicality, conformity to morality, and conformity to value ethos. It is in this dimension, ladies and gentlemen, what I wanted to put across is, it is true that there are n number of dilemmas that every individual life faces in n number of situations. There is definitely a conflict between wanting to be right and yet not being able to be right, and then n number of excuses that we are put across. I have only one test. Whatever we act and whatever we do, if we are required to be putting that action of ours in terms of excuses to be forwarded, take it for granted. Those excuses are nothing but the camouflage for the purposes of compromised ethicality and compromised morality. An event, an outcome, a duty dispensation, which when dispensed is not required to be put across with any camouflage of excuses, take it for granted. It clears the litmus test of being ethically right. And therefore, if it is ethically right, it will be legally just. If it is ethically right and legally just, it has to be politically correct, because the dictum of Socrates is an absolute dictum that that which is ethically wrong cannot be legally just and politically right. It is with these words I am wanting to put this cross parable to all concerned. Not that I am wanting all of us to understand. We understand all this. All this is a part of our knowledge. All this is a part of our understanding. All this is a part of our grasp. But unfortunately, all this is not a part of our between core and action. Ethics is something which has to be translated into action. Ab to insaan ko insaan banaya jaye. That transition that we are contemplating, if this earth is really required to be made a better planet for human habitation, it is not only the environmental protection, it is protection, insulation of ethical norms which we have espoused to be put across into practice. And the only way of practicing them is not preaching them, but incorporating them as a way of life. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me this opportunity of putting this across on this occasion. I think, I trust, I believe that I have tried to do the best from my side. Whatever little at my disposal, I have put it across. I am open to any scrutiny and suggestions as well. Thank you very much for patient listening.
Sir, we can continue to listen to you for ages. Your speech is unmatched, sir. Your expression and impromptu elements that you add. It's really a pleasure to the ears.
Yes, sir. Truly, to what Dr. Richa said, we are highly elated to be part of this, to be listening to you today, and the way you have, taken us back to the morals that we learned as part of stories in our childhood, and also the shift in the basic principle of from might is right to right is might, and also finally the way he concluded that ethics should be translated into actions. So today I can say is a very inspirational speech to us, and it was very motivating, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being with us today, sir.
Pleasure, dear, pleasure.
Now I would like to invite Mr. Sudhir Patel, Secretary, Human Ethics Committee Association and Director of Clinical Research, to give us the vote of thanks.
Sarah, thank you very much, sir. We are really, pleased to hear this. Sarah, I think if anyone has, I can see, there are some questions, and so if we can invite that who is a question, then maybe we can. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, yes, yeah. Sir, Dr. Vedprakash, sir, we have a question from the audience.
Please.
So in the light of so should the medical research be compassionate towards human beings in the research products, or can the medical research use man and his body as a tool?
See, I think this particular issue is already sorted in terms of the governing principles which have been evolved by the Helsinki Declaration, which are absolutely sumptuous in nature and absolutely loud and clear in character. It is virtually, I mean, the very principles have been adopted in regard to the biomedical and bioclinical research by the Indian Council of Medical Research. And those guidelines are applicable and binding to all of us, all the clinical scientists in the country, including anybody who is wanting to be doing research in India. It is not only that the principles that govern the biomedical research are country specific. The Helsinki Declaration has given that this is what is called as a universal declaration governing biomedical research. And as I said, these were out of the horrifying experiences that were worked out in the Nuremberg trial, where the prisoners of war in Germany were used so badly for the medical or biomedical research, as a result of which this consensus has been evolved. And that evolved consensus in terms of Helsinki Declaration is translated into the principles governing biomedical research, which I think are totally humanistic in character, insulatory in nature, and there is no feasibility, possibility, or permissibility of any human compromise in the entire essence of biomedical research. I find no reason at this juncture to be looking for any additional thing in the governing principles which are already there in vogue. They are absolutely, catering to the cause in a big way, and they are sumptuous enough in my understanding.
Yes, sir. So we have the principles in place, which we have. It is our responsibility as an individual.
As a matter of fact, the ethical committees are the custodian of ensuring that all these principles are adhered to. If you really ask me, what is HECA? HECA, according to me, is a conscious keeper of biomedical and bioclinical research. Institutional ethical committees are the statutory mechanisms which are created for that particular purpose. Ethicality, ethical breaches, and ethical conformity of the principles, conflict of interest, all these dimensions are critically looked. Every research proposal in regard to its ethical contours are required to be scrutinized by the ethical committee. And no research can be undertaken in this country without the explicit clearance of the ethical research committee or the institutional ethical research committee. That is the mandate vested with them. Therefore, HECA by itself, which is an association, and institutional ethical committees by themselves are the statutory mechanism which are duty bound to ensure that ICMR biomedical research guidelines drawn from Helsinki's Universal Declaration are strictly adhered to. And mind well, there is no marginalization, there is no concession, and there is no condonation permissible from those binding guidelines in any manner, direct, indirect, explicit, or implicit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very true, sir. Yeah, thank you, sir. So now may I invite Mr. Rakesh with a question, please?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
This is Rakesh from HECA, and I think your speech is a melody to the ears, which you can keep hearing like any old musicians with so much of professionalism that we can, as Dr. Richa said. So it's a privilege to hear you, and
thank you.
The sublime use of words with the examples are truly motivating, for our life. I was just wondering that, from your experiences, sir, how organization like HECA, we can put a vision for next 5 years, 3 years. As you explained, this was also one of my questions which you answered, the conformity of ethicality and morality to be seen all biomedical research. but for our life of a HECA, how, though, as Dr. Richa said, we are in a very early stage. As per, wealth of experience that you have, what we should do, to really make this larger across India, which is the need. I'm sure with your experience, you can, guide us, sir.
See, look, I take IECs as the ethics enforcing authority institutions. Whenever we talk of enforcement, enforcement will always have A, possible breaches, B, palpable violations. We have to keep an eye. If these are the principles, we are wanting to enforce them. What are the likelihood of they being marginalized? Like, I will classically give you an example. Institutional ethical committees in India, in regard to conflict of interest, they do not have a charter. What exactly is to be construed as a conflict of interest? If you look the American Charter on Conflict of Interest, they have categorized. We have still not. That is one area. Conflict of interest turns out to be one area which we need to develop, which we need to, make it more exemplary and more absolutely demonstrably classifiable. Number one. Number two, we are still talking of code of ethics to be implemented. If the code is breached or if the code is violated, then what? We have nothing at our disposal. If I am an enforcing agency, if there is an onus on me for the purposes of enforcement, I am wanting to ask myself, any breach thereof, how it is to be dealt, who is to deal with it, what is the mechanism for dealing the same, and in case the breach is substantial, what is the modality of infliction of the exemplary punishment, which should act as a deterrent for people to ensure that it does not recur again. Like plagiarism policy has been put by UGC into place as an academic dishonesty. Still in the academic and research world, the entire ethical considerations are viewed in the context of academic honesty and academic dishonesty. But you tell me how academic dishonesty is to be dealt in a deterrent manner. I have not come across any document so far. So we are a law enforcing agency. We are the ethics enforcing agency. Do you have teeth? Do you have real enforcing powers? Real enforcing powers also are only to the extent advisory in nature. Non-conformity. What is the residuary power which is vested with the institutional ethical committee? You may not grant a clearance. See, my consideration is breaches are conducted after the ethical clearances are received. And it comes to your and my knowledge and notice what is the authority and what is the power in which we will be able to regulate, except that we are passive watchers of the situation. Therefore, HECA should work in the direction of, in my humble opinion, and please don't misunderstand me, it's an advisory in my capacity as the advisor that you have vested in me. HECA should move in the direction of literal enforcement of ethical research principles, mean authority to deal with ethical breaches as well, or ethical breaches that are known, that are identified. There must be a forum where those ethical breaches must be decided, and there must be a mechanism which should result in infliction of deterrent punishment to all those who result and commit these breaches into. This is the way. See, at the end of the day, codes have failed to give the desired result primarily because they are not laws, and therefore codes turn out to be advisory in nature and their legal enforcement validity is not there. It is in that context that HECA should take the initiative, ensuring that it is not only through advisory, but also through enforcement that we should be in a position to attain a clean, ethical, bioclinical research climate and research culture. Today, it is voluntary in nature. No, meager voluntarism will not do. It should be enforceable in character. I am a strong proponent of the same.
Oh, sir, thank you so much. Really, thank you for enlightening that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rakesh, for the question. Now I invite Sudhir sir to give us the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Sir, I heard you in Bioethic on 2019, and the irony speech which you have given at that time. And since then, I was dreaming to get an opportunity to hear you again. And today, through HECA, that's like dream comes true. And today again we witnessed the speech, and today when I was seeing the responses from the audience, everyone was in a wonder of your speech, and this was what it was expected. So sir, it is to hear you is always a privilege. On behalf of HECA and Quinary Clinical Research, I would like to thank you for joining with us and enlighten with your with the session. We are feeling blessed to have you with us today when HECA is celebrating Ethics Week on the occasion of Global Ethics Day. Sir, once again, we would like to thank you to accept our invitation, and we are looking forward many more such kind of sessions and your advice. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Richa Dayaramani, President of HECA, and Mr. Rakesh, Director, Quinary Clinical Research, for your continued support and your guidance. Thank you, Sarah, for your excellent moderation, and Jaini for administrative support. And last but not least, thank you each and every participant who has joined with us and be a part of this dynamic session, which was organized as a part of Ethics Week celebration by the Human Ethics Committee Association in association with Quinary Clinical Research. So with this, we end our today's session. Thanks again. Thank you very much, sir.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I thank HECA for enabling us to participate and giving the opportunity for all the participants to be a part of this wonderful session with a wonderful speaker, and making this Global Ethics Day a moment where we all remember the importance of ethics, not only in research, but also in our individual lives as an individuals. I thank you, the entire team of HECA, the president, the secretary, and the entire team which has worked for this day of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.